Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 10, Chapter 9. Sri Shuka said, One day Yashoda, Nanda's pious spouse, set maids to divers tasks within the house, while she herself, the cowherd's noble queen, laboured with love to churn the curds and cream. And, as she churned, in song she did rehearse the childhood deeds of her dear son in verse. A yellow raiment round her sturdy thighs was girt about her waist with golden ties, and while the churning rod she pulled and pressed, milk trickled from her oscillating breast. Her bangles clashing made a tinkling sound, the flowers from her hair fell to the ground. The motion of the churning and the pace made perspiration drip down from her face. Her ear pendants were swinging to and fro, her sable tresses reflected their glow. Such was the sight of the blessed cowherd queen, while she, delighted, sat to churn the cream. Meantime, thirsting for suck unto his dame, where she was busy churning, Hari came, and caught hold of the rod wherewith she churned, and all her heart with fond affection warmed. She stopped her work, and lifted up her child, and took him on her lap, by love beguiled, and looked on him, and to her breast applied, and suckled him, but before satisfied, since she was distracted by intense love, the milk began to boil upon the stove. Wherefore she rushed off in haste with a bound, and left Krishna still thirsty on the ground. Incensed, he bites his lips in rage and cries, which brightens the red lustre of his eyes. Indignant then he took a stone and dashed the stone against the jar. The jar was smashed. With feigning tears in some sequestered nook, he sat him down and lumps of butter took. Meantime, removing the milk, boiling hot, the mother had returned to the same spot, and though she looked for him, she saw him not. Then, seeing the broken vessel, she thought and smiled, knowing well who the deed had wrought. Nor sooner had she spied him from afar, seated upon an overturned mortar, and doling out to monkeys in the yard the tasty curds and cream, now off his guard, but glancing here and there, now and again, with guilty looks the jars of milk did drain. And thus, with cautious silent steps, the dame then little by little to that spot came. But when his mother, stick in hand, he spies, he leaps in fear and from the mortar flies, and thus she tries to seize him from behind, whom yogins seek, but very rarely find. Now while in haste she did the child pursue, cascading flowers her footsteps ensue. Impeded by her bulky breasts and thighs, she hastes behind, to catch the culprit tries, and when she did the chance to grab him find, she caught hold of him tightly from behind. The guilty child, with apprehensive fear, grew terrified as his mother drew near, and smeared the collyrium round his eyes, that blended with his tears and frequent sighs. The fond mother then seized him by the hand, then mildly 'gan her child to reprimand. But when she saw how he was terrified, she cast aside the stick, and did decide that to the grinding mortar she would bind her restless child, and keep him thus confined. That one who has no outside nor within, and nothing is before or after him, who both inside and outside permeates, who is the world, and who the world creates, ineffable unmanifest to view, she him but as her darling dear knew. The cowherdess then decided at last with rope to bind him to the mortar fast. To this expedient she did resort, to bind the offender, but still too short the length of 2 finger phalanges found, and to that rope another rope she bound. Yet still she tried another rope to add to the first rope that she already had. She brought as many ropes as she could find, but still the naughty child she could not bind. The cowherd dames and damosels drew nigh, observed with smiles how Yashoda did try to bind her son, while she would also smile to see her labour utterly futile. At length, when her exhaustion he perceived, and flowers from her hair the ground received, and perspiration trickled down her face, compassionate he deigned to show his grace, and let himself be to the mortar tied, and thus with her intention he complied. Thus Hari by this exploit did display, albeit over the great gods he holds sway, who act in accordance with his decrees, that he is subject to his devotees. Nor Brahma, nor Bhava, nor goddess Shri, who always clings to him, such high degree of favour from the Saviour did achieve, as did this pious cowherdess receive. That mighty Lord, son of the cowherd dame, nor bodied beings nor the wise attain, but only those who such pure love possess find him by love as easy of access. Thereafter, in her household chores employed, she left him there alone, somewhat annoyed, and while Krishna stood to the mortar tied, a pair of Arjun trees near by espied, who were indeed 2 Guhyakas of old, sons of the giver of all wealth and gold. Nalakuvara was well known to fame, the other went by Manigriva's name. But due to pride of wealth and affluence, sage Narada cursed them for some dire offence, whose imprecation on their fate decrees that they, a term, must wear the shape of trees. Thus ends chapter 9 in book 10 of the great and glorious Bhagavat Purana, the text beloved of swan-like saints, sung by the son of Vyasa. Chapter 10. The king said, "What dire offence had these done to provoke the sainted Narad and his curse invoke? Sure rage is but from ignorance derived. How was he of his placid mien deprived?" Sri Shuka said, "These 2 were offspring of the Lord of Gold, who were as Rudra's attendants enrolled. There was a garden grove near Mount Kailas, through which Mandakini's pure waters pass. There, with a band of nymphs, they roam the wood, who sing their praise and sport within the flood. They enter Ganga's waters, quaffing wine, where clusters of fragrant lotuses shine, and sporting with the nymphs, their pride augments, as elephants with female elephants. The godlike Rishi, almighty in grace, providentially came unto that place, and observed that the 2 of them were drunk on wine and in inebriation sunk. But when the nymphs the sainted Narad saw, they quickly dressed for shame and pious awe. Yet the 2 Guhyakas, from wine elate, remained shamelessly in their naked state. Narad was struck with pity at the sight of Dhanada's sons in that sorry plight. To end their folly, Narad then pronounced an imprecation and their vice denounced. Sri Narada said, "For one engrossed in sense pleasures that spring from brooding passion, none such harm can bring as haughtiness derived from affluence, which engenders all pride and arrogance. Such are the slaves to every vain essay, ignorant that their bodies will decay. And in the chase they slaughter birds and beasts, and their vain lives maintain with profane feasts. A man who vainly styles himself a god, whilst in the body makes his short abode, will one day be known only by the terms of ashes, or excreta, or of worms. And those who other beings hurt or hate know not in hell awaits their future state. Indeed, to whom does the body belong? To those who gave it food and made it strong? Or does it belong to the father who gave to it life? Or does the mother too, severally or jointly have a claim, for both of them did nourish and maintain? Or to the man who does for service hire, yet it will be consumed by dogs or fire? Thus the body from elements evolved is into the same elements dissolved. What wise man, to whom these things are well known, will hurt others or take it for his own? Should he who with himself identifies the elemental body be deemed wise? Methinks there is but this one only cure, whereby the proud and haughty may procure a remedy, and that to make them poor. For a poor man grows hungry, and beside he apprehends the folly of his pride, as one pricked by thorns comprehends the pain he conceives in others that pain the same, but pain unfelt he cannot realize another's pain, nor can he sympathize. A poor man must privations undergo, and is thereby freed from his vain ego, and with his fate he must be satisfied, and by this great torment is purified. His sense and vigour are always subdued, and he must beg every day for his food. Diminished in this way is arrogance, and weakened he abandons violence. He may then holy company pursue, since the holy ones all as equal view, in whose company he is purified, and thus the poor man may be sanctified. Since holy ones all as equal observe, and the feet of Mukunda always serve, they have no business with the rich and vain, for in such company what should they gain? Therefore, since these two are blinded with pride, and inebriated on wine beside, attached to females, and shamelessly lewd, without control and senses unsubdued, and thus to rectify their condition, I shall pronounce a stern admonition. Since these are sons of a world guardian, it ill behooves their exalted station that they should be in ignorance engrossed, quite naked, and into such folly tossed. And since they forfeit sense and faculties, let them be transfigured to Arjun trees, and there 100 heavenly years remain, and by my grace their memory retain. Moreover, when Lord Vasudeva appears, after 100 celestial years, they shall behold the Lord then face to face, and devotion by special grace attain devotion by a special grace. They shall thereby regain their former state, and to heaven ascend released from fate. Sri Shuka said, when thus the godlike sage these words expressed, his way to Narayana's ashram addressed, and Nalakuvara, as fate decrees, and Manigriva become Arjuna trees. Lord Hari, to fulfill the prophecy of the great sage, his foremost devotee, now dragged the mortar to which he was bound toward the Arjun trees across the ground. The godlike sage to me is very dear, and these are the sons of Danada here, and therefore I shall act accordingly as sung by Narad in his prophecy. Thus, in order to fulfill Narada's song, he pulled the mortar by the rope along, and as the trees were by the mortar struck, it was between the trees obliquely stuck. The child exhibited his potent might, although with rope his belly was bound tight. With irresistible force the roots quake, the branches quiver, and the leaves all shake. Then down the trees came crashing to the ground, which raised a loud and horrifying sound. Then straight two handsome beings forward strode, who had within the forms of trees abode, and to Krishna with palms together pressed, head bowed, fair praises to the Lord addressed. O Krishna, Krishna, supreme yogin great, primal Lord who doth nature antedate, the learned Brahmins your cosmic form view, and know cause and effect proceed from you. You are one and in all beings abide, and over bodies and senses preside. All as inexorable time control. You are Vishnu, imperishable soul. You are great nature and the subtle seed, whence Raja, Sattva, and Tama proceed. You are the being who nature transcends, who movements of all beings apprehends. You antedate all manifested things, and transformations that from gunas springs, and who, under the gunas' influence, can know your primal pristine existence. O illustrious one, we bow to thee in salutation and humility, to Vasudeva, source and origin, from whom creation of the worlds begin, of radiant self by gunas concealed, Brahma supreme in glory unrevealed. Although you have no elemental form, you incarnate and wondrous deeds perform, inimitable acts of vast delight, of puissant prowess and heroic might, as here you enact when you incarnate, that no one else could ever imitate. And you are he, the universal Lord, who all beings, all blessings and salvation afford. You have by a part of yourself appeared, the master of benedictions revered. All hail to thee, supreme in righteousness. All hail to thee, supreme auspiciousness. To Vasudeva, placid and sublime. All hail to thee, chief of the Yadu's line. As servants of your follower we sue, and now request, O great one, leave from you. It was by the sage's favour and grace that we have seen the great one face to face. Now may our speech your attributes proclaim, our ears hear tidings of your spotless fame, our hands and acts to your service resigned, and may in our minds your feet be enshrined. Since you in all and everywhere pervade, May our salutation to all be made, and may we have the true insight to see how devotees constitute your body. Sri Shuka said, thus the two gods glorified his high fame and praised by Sankirtan his holy name. The Almighty, Lord of Gokula height, still bound up by rope to the mortar tight, a charming smile upon his face displayed, and to the two handsome Guyakas said, the illustrious one said, I am aware of the antecedent, the which has occasioned this incident, how by the great Rishi, compassionate, although you were blind and inebriate, a curse was denounced upon both of you, from which your present fortune doth ensue. The holy ones all as equal observe, and determined always my purpose serve. As Savita with rays brighten the skies, to see sainted holy ones with the eyes, release from worldly bondage is attained, whereby ultimate welfare is gained. That gift of love, for which to me you sue, has already been developed in you. May both of you deep absorption maintain, and never fall into folly again. Sri Shuka said, thus, still unto the mortar bound, he said, and they saluted him with lowered head, and pacing round him thrice, they ventured forth, with his leave, to the regions of the north. Thus ends chapter 10 in book 10 of the great and glorious Srimad Bhagavat Purana, the text beloved of swan-like saints, sung by the son of Vyasa.